Today, we are figuring out why the numbers are completely ignoring the chaos.
It really is a fascinating disconnect. When you watch a match like that, it feels like standing in front of a massive roaring bonfire.
Yeah,
All you see is pure chaotic energy. Heat, noise, unpredictable sparks flying into the night sky. The sheer emotion of being a supporter is just, well, it's blinding.
exactly. And our mission today is to step into the shoes of a football data scientist who also happens to be a Manchester United fan. We need to look past the flames and analyze the fuel.
I like that analogy.
Thanks. We're taking a structured data storytelling approach to evaluate United's true chances of Champions League qualification in this 2025-26 Premier League run-in. Because while pundits and fans on post-match phone-ins are screaming about refereeing conspiracies,
As they always do.
right, the data tells a much colder, clearer story. Okay, let's unpack this. We've got an incredible stack of sources today. We're talking historical baselines, live betting market data, expected points breakdowns, and advanced simulations. Where do we even start peeling this onion?
Well, we have to start by establishing a baseline, I think. Before we can understand the chaos, we need to know what the structure was actually supposed to look like. So we look at the Opta analyst predictions from right before that explosive Bournemouth match.
Right, Opta's supercomputer. It processes, what, millions of data points from the season?
Exactly. Millions. And heading into the weekend, Opta gave Manchester United a highly specific 53.35% probability of finishing exactly in third place.
Wow, that's specific.
Yeah, and even more striking, it gave them a massive 93% chance of a top 5 finish. That was the mathematical reality before kickoff.
But the Bournemouth result shifted the ground beneath those numbers, didn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Because United are still sitting in third on 55 points, but Aston Villa just won against West Ham. So now the gap between United in third and Villa in fourth is just a single point.
Right.
Now, that is interesting because I was looking at the betting markets this morning, fully expecting the odds makers to be panicking right alongside the fan base.
And they weren't, were they?
Not at all. They have United listed at 17 to secure a Champions League spot. I had to do a double take. If you translate that fractional odd into an implied probability, that's roughly an 87% chance of qualification. How on earth is the smart money so calm when the fan base is practically rioting?
Because the betting market isn't driven by emotion. It's driven by financial exposure. Odds makers adjust lines based on where professional syndicates are placing massive amounts of capital.
Right, it's like a financial stock exchange. It's the wisdom of crowds, but combined with cold, hard cash. It strips away all the bias of angry post-match phone-ins to reveal the true value of the team's position.
Spot on. And what's fascinating here is that the market isn't just looking at Manchester United in a vacuum. It is actively punishing their rivals.
Ah, okay, so it's a comparative valuation.
Precisely. Look at Chelsea. They are currently sitting in 6th place, and their odds are 114. That translates to an implied probability of just 36%.
Ouch.
Yeah. The market sees United's qualification as highly probable because they see fundamental structural flaws in the teams chasing them. Chelsea currently has the third worst defense in Europe among top leagues, and they are totally distracted by a 5-2 deficit against PSG in the Champions League.
And Aston Villa, who are only 1 point behind United, are absolutely ravaged by injuries. Boubacar Kamara and Yuri Tielemans are missing significant time in midfield.
Exactly. The betting market absorbs all of that real-time information, the injuries, fatigue, defensive frailties, and decides that United's structural floor is simply much higher than their rivals.
Okay, I get that the market is punishing rivals. But what is the actual on-pitch engine driving United's valuation? It can't just be that Chelsea and Villa are stumbling. There has to be a positive force pushing United forward.
There is. The engine is their current form trend. If we apply a points per game or PPG adjustment to the last couple of months, we have to talk about the Michael Carrick effect.
All right. Since taking over as interim manager in January, Carrick has undeniably changed the atmosphere at Old Trafford.
He hasn't just changed the atmosphere. He has turned Manchester United into the form team of the entire Premier League.
Really? Number one.
Yep. Over his 10 games in charge, United has secured 7 wins, 2 draws, and just 1 loss. That averages out to a staggering 2.1 points per game. Extrapolate that momentum over the final 7 games, and it points to a final tally of roughly 70 points.
Wow. Meanwhile, Villa is on a brutal slide, averaging just 1.2 Leroy points per game since those midfield injuries.
Huge drop-off.
Yeah. And Liverpool is playing Jekyll and Hyde, beating West Ham 5-2, but then losing to bottom-place Wolves. They're averaging 1.45 PPG. But, okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Is it mathematically sound to apply a weighted current form based entirely on an interim manager's honeymoon phase. Think about the last time you saw a new manager bounce. The players get a lift, they run 10% harder for a few weeks, but then the reality of their talent level just sort of sets back in.
The new manager bounce is a real phenomenon, sure.
Right, so as the pressure mounts in these final 7 games, can we really trust a simple points per game average to hold up?
What's fascinating here is that the underlying data suggests this isn't just a morale-based honeymoon phase. Carrick's weighted form reflects genuine tactical stabilization.
Not just vibes, then.
Not just vibes. He's found a settled lineup, Bruno Fernandes is thriving in a slightly deeper playmaking role, and that attacking trio of Kuna, Mbemo, and Ahmad are clicking in terms of progressive passes received.
Okay, so the tactical shift is real. But here is the fatal flaw with the PPG model, right? It assumes a straight line.
Ah, yes.
It assumes United is going to play the exact same mathematically average opponent every single week. How do we actually project the future when we know the schedule isn't a straight line? Some weeks you play Chelsea away, some weeks you play Sunderland at home.
This is exactly why we have to discard the simple straight line average and move to an advanced predictive simulation. We use the Poisson and Monte Carlo models.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I know Monte Carlo simulations are huge in finance, but explain how this works for football. Let's apply the ELI 5 standard. Explain like I'm 5.
Fair enough. Let's start with the Poisson distribution. In football, goals are rare, discrete events. They don't happen constantly like points in basketball.
Right.
So a Poisson model takes 2 key variables, a team's attacking strength and the opponent's defensive strength, normalized against the league average. Right now, United is creating high-quality chances at 1.20 times the league average.
Okay, so you take United's sharp attack, cross it with the specific defense of whoever they are playing that weekend, and the Poisson model spits out the exact percentage chance of every possible scoreline.
You've got it.
So it says there's like a 12% chance of a 2-1 win, an 8% chance of a 1-1 draw, and so on.
Exactly. It turns the messy chaos of 90 minutes into a clean probability matrix for that specific game.
And then comes the Monte Carlo part. If the Poisson model gives us the probabilities for one game, the Monte Carlo simulation rolls the dice on the rest of the season.
Yep.
It's basically like Doctor Strange viewing 14 million alternate futures in the Avengers, right? We are looking at the multiverse of the Premier League run-in.
That is a perfect analogy. The simulation creates a probability distribution. It plays out the rest of the 2025-26 season 10,000 times, and it heavily clusters Manchester United's most likely final tally, right between 66 and 70 points.
So in the vast majority of these multiverses, United secures Champions League football.
Yes. In the vast majority of these simulated realities, United finishes firmly ahead of Chelsea and Liverpool, who both cluster around 59 to 60 points. Villa projects a bit closer, around 63 to 64.
But I'm going to push back on this too.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
Because football isn't played 10,000 times. It's played once. And a low-scoring game, chaos reigns. We just saw it. Maguire gets a red card in the first half. No mathematical model, no matter how perfectly the dice are weighted, can predict a center back getting sent off in the 30th minute. That ruins a 90-minute tactical plan instantly.
You're right, it does. Which is why the model includes a standard deviation of about 3.4 points.
Oh, okay.
That standard deviation literally represents the chaos you were talking about, the bad refereeing decisions, the red cards, the weird deflections. But even when you factor in that margin of error, the distribution heavily favors United.
Why is that?
Because their underlying chance creation rate provides a mathematical buffer. If you create enough high-quality chances, you can survive a bad bounce.
So simulations are great in the aggregate. But let's look at the actual path. Let's look at the exact dice being rolled over these final 7 games. Because on paper, our sources indicate United actually has the trickiest schedule of all the top 4 contenders remaining.
They do, but it requires context. We need to break down the fixture list using expected points, or XP.
Remind us how XP works for a full match.
Sure. Expected points takes the expected goals of a matchup and converts it into the likelihood of a win, draw, or loss, assigning a point value. For example, if you have a 50% chance to win, a 30% chance to draw, and 20% to lose, your XP for that game is 1.8 points.
Got it. So what does the XP path look like for United?
It's a tale of 2 very different periods. First, you have the mid-April gauntlet. This is a high-risk stretch. They have an away derby at Chelsea, followed by hosting Brentford and Liverpool at Old Trafford.
Man, that is brutal.
It is high variance, definitely. But if you look past the gauntlet, they have a highly favorable, chilled-out finish. After the Liverpool game on May 2nd, they play Sunderland, Nottingham Forest, and Brighton.
Okay, that's much softer.
Right. Because of that light finish and a favorable split of 4 home games to 3 away, the model projects United to add roughly 11.8 expected points over the final 7 games.
So the overarching strategy is to survive the gauntlet so you can feast on the chilled-out finish.
Essentially, yes.
But looking at the immediate schedule, the very next game is Leeds United at Old Trafford. The model identifies this as a massive must-win game because historical XP heavily favors United's attack against a notoriously leaky Leeds defense.
It does.
But here's my fundamental issue with this. Does the math understand desperation?
What do you mean?
Leeds is currently fighting a vicious relegation battle. A team fighting for its Premier League survival doesn't play to their season-long statistical average. They play like their lives depend on it.
That is a brilliant point, and it's a known documented limitation of expected points models. Oh, absolutely. Late-season relegation battles inject massive variance into expected goals trends. A desperate team might defend with 10 men in the box for 90 minutes, completely abandoning their historical playstyle. They turn a mathematically easy fixture into a grinding, low-probability draw.
Right, you can't model survival instincts.
You really can't. Which is exactly why banking points early in the gauntlet is a vital strategic buffer. United cannot rely purely on the easy matches at the end because those teams might be fighting for their lives.
Okay, but let's play out the nightmare scenario. Let's say variance strikes hard. United stumbles in the gauntlet, drops points to Chelsea and Liverpool, and gets frustrated by a desperate, low-blocking Leeds team.
The worst-case scenario.
Exactly. Even in that worst-case scenario, where everything goes wrong on the pitch, our sources point to a macro-level safety net protecting them. The 5th spot.
Yes. The expansion of the Champions League format has fundamentally altered the math of the Premier League run-in. UEFA now awards an additional Champions League spot to the 2 nations with the highest coefficient rankings at the end of the season.
For those who haven't obsessed over the intricacies of European football administration, how is that UEFA coefficient actually calculated?
It's based on the collective performance of a nation's clubs across all European competitions. Champions League, Europa League, Conference League. You get points for wins, draws, and advancing to the next rounds.
And how's England doing right now?
Right now, England is absolutely dominating the table with 24.791 points. Even though teams like Chelsea and Newcastle had early exits, Arsenal and Liverpool are still highly active in the Champions League quarterfinals. Every time they progress, they earn more coefficient points for the Premier League.
Meaning that rival clubs are actively doing United's dirty work in Europe.
Pretty much.
Which makes it a statistical near certainty that whoever finishes 5th in the Premier League will qualify for the Champions League. And when you look at the table, United is currently sitting in 3rd. They are 6 points clear of 5th place Liverpool and 7 points clear of 6th place Chelsea. That safety net drastically alters the entire strategic outlook.
It changes everything. Remember that 93% probability from the Opta baseline we talked about at the start?
Yeah.
It was so high precisely because the models factored in this 5th place safety net. It provides a massive cushion against the chaos, the red cards, and the refereeing errors we were just talking about.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive, staring into the roaring, chaotic fire of the Bournemouth match. The blown leads, the red card, the furious complaints to the refereeing body, the fans just, tearing their hair out.
It was a mess.
But by stepping into the shoes of a data scientist, we didn't just stare at the flames. We studied the fuel.
We did. We saw that the rigid historical baselines gave United a strong foundation, but it was the real-time betting markets that proved the smart money is actively punishing the structural flaws of Chelsea and Aston Villa.
We recognized that Michael Carrick's tactical stabilization is driving a real 2.10 points per game momentum. And when we realized that simple averages don't account for a shifting schedule, we used the Monte Carlo simulation to roll the weighted dice 10,000 times.
Proving that United's chance creation rate is a buffer against bad luck.
Exactly. And even when we broke down the tricky fixture list, acknowledging the high variance of desperate relegation teams, the math points back to that ultimate UEFA coefficient safety net, which leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on as we wrap up. If algorithms, Poisson distributions, and Monte Carlo simulations can so accurately predict the trajectory of the beautiful game, does data ruin the magic of football? Or, by revealing the hidden, intricate physics beneath the bonfire on the pitch, does it actually enhance our appreciation of just how perfectly balanced this sport really is? Something to think about the next time the referee blows his whistle.